Happy spooky season once again, guys and girls. Board now back with Rachel McDonald. On this video, we're going to review Urban Legend from 1998. So this very much is one of the big post-Scream slasher movies of that era, and sort of a mini franchise. We're starting with this one because there is a couple of sequels which we'll definitely get to at some point, but the original movie from the director of that memorable romantic movie Valentine, which we covered a couple of years ago. So from that guy, college setup, and the gimmick of the movie is then the killings are all based on urban legends. So these students are being taught about urban legends by Robert Englund, of all people, and the killer is actually recreating these urban legends when he kills people. So you got a series of characters and potential suspects of who the killer could be in this campus. Alicia Witt is the main girl, the Sydney of this movie, if you like. You've got Joshua Jackson from Dawson's Creek, who again is playing quite close to that type of character as the sort of dweeby, quite annoying, sort of brat. You also have Jared Leto in here. That casting has aged badly because he's basically playing like a sensitive, ambitious, journalist. That's kind of the role. I think at the time they got away with it, but no one's buying it in 2023 with Leto. You've also got Rebecca Gayheart, who's definitely been in a few things from around this time. She plays one of the best friends, and definitely a bunch of faces, and it's one that is really referencing classic horror because, as I said, cameo from Robert Englund. You've also got Brad DeWitt in the opening scene of this movie, the crazy gas attendant who it turns out isn't Psycho, or at least isn't the killer. It was Queen Latifah, wasn't it, played the security?
No. I understand why you would think that. Her name... Yeah, her name is Loretta Devine, and you would absolutely know her from, she's one of those actresses that she just kind of pops up everywhere. Sure. Very recognizable face.
Yeah, so she's another character who quite strongly features. So I know this is one which Rachel has a soft spot for, so we will, of course, start with her. What do you think of Urban Legend?
I think that this is such a bad movie, but I absolutely love it. Look, this is one of my horror guilty pleasures. I watched this movie and I'm like, what is wrong with me that I like this movie so much? Because it is so not good. It's one of those, like you said, it's one of the post-Scream movies, so it was obviously trying to cash in on the slasher craze that definitely boomed in the late 90s. This is one of those ones that didn't succeed that well. I mean, once we get into the plot and we start examining the story, it really falls apart under the slightest scrutiny. It's like, this movie makes no sense. I'm sorry. I don't know if you've seen Alicia Witt in anything else. I certainly haven't, but I think she is one of the worst final girls I've ever come across. She is such a sad sack. And I don't know where this chick went to acting school, because some of her reactions are so, flat. I swear there's this one point where she screams and her face doesn't make any expression. It's like, how do you scream without making any expression? That is talent.
Okay, however, I didn't pick up on that, but okay.
Yeah. However, I have a lot of fun with this film for several reasons. First of all, I think the urban legend angle, even though it doesn't quite work out, is fun. You have some really fun horror cameos. Like you said, we've got Robert Englund, we've got Brad Dourif. You've also got Danielle, what's her name? From Halloween. Danielle Harris, yes, playing Tosh, the very annoying gothic roommate, whose death is probably one of the best in the movie, I will say. I think hers is one of the more effective deaths. You also forgot my two favorite actors in this when you're listing who's in this. Good old Michael Rosenbaum. It's very weird to see him with hair because I'm so used to seeing him as Lex Luthor. And Tara Reid before she went off the rails. And I think Tara Reid's character is actually one of the better ones in this film, Sasha, who plays this kind of dirty talking radio host. I think at times you can tell they're having a lot of fun with this movie. However, it does suffer a little bit from sometimes it feels like it is taking itself too seriously. So I think it seems to fluctuate between we're just having some dumb fun and we're maybe trying to take things too seriously. I think there is they do have a lot of fun. You know, casting Brad Dourif as the gas station attendant in the first scene, they knew what they were doing there. Like they knew that if they put Brad Dourif in, you know, everyone would instantly go, "Oh no!" You mentioned Joshua Jackson's in this, so this was at the height of Dawson's Creek. It was when Dawson's Creek had like just come out, and there's a great bit where he's in the car with Alicia Witt's character, and they turn the radio on, and it's the Dawson's Creek theme song. And he's just like, oh, what is that? No. I thought that was a great little bit. You know, Robert Englund's obviously having fun playing the kind of creepy, slightly dodgy professor. And again, I think they really knew what they were doing with that casting. You know, it's like if we cast him, everyone's going to be suspicious. However, this movie is really stupid. Like, it is. It's really dumb. These characters, they don't have a lot of development. You know, like I said, I really don't like the final girl. I think the best character in the movie is probably Rebecca Gayheart's character, which, again, as we get into spoilers, we'll talk about, why she is. And yeah, there's a bit of pacing issues with this movie as well. Like I said, some of the deaths really don't make sense. And when we find out the killer's motivation, it really kind of makes the whole movie fall apart. But I think because it's part of that era of horror that I really love, which is the post-Scream era, and it's also quite nostalgic for me. You know, I saw this when I was quite young. It was one of the earlier horror movies that I saw. I was a teenager when I saw it, so I was definitely right in the right age demographic. And you know, it was full of actors that I knew from other movies. You know, I loved Dawson's Creek, so Joshua Jackson. I loved the American Pie movie, so Tara Reid. I loved Smallville, so Michael Rosenbaum. So I think all of those go into my love for this movie, despite the fact that I can acknowledge that it is not a good film, but it's fun. I'm assuming you've seen this before, but how did you?
I've seen it.
How did you go on this rewatch?
I've seen it a few times. Yeah, like you, I sort of did grow up on it. So also, as Cindy pointed out on stream, it does mean we have a version of Lex Luthor and the Joker.
That is very true. Yes, you're right. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, that's funny. And a couple of other comments before I get to my thoughts is that, did you know that tosh is a UK word for rubbish? So that's really
didn't. Oh, okay. Cool. That's
like a load of tosh, they'll say.
Okay.
So that's
cool.
Really, probably a hot take, but I actually prefer Valentine to this.
Okay, fair enough.
And I think because Valentine overall is more of a fun film, I think overall that is more of an entertaining, so bad it's good time. Another reason is because I think the kills are better in that movie. The kills are pretty lame in this. Like, I think that is a disappointment that overall,
they definitely could be better.
I would say probably the principal's death is maybe the best of a bad bunch, but overall they're not great kills. Also, the principal, that actor John Neville, he appears in the X-Files. He has quite a big role in the X-Files.
Okay.
So that's where I know him mostly from. So I'll say on the positive side, I think the film has a good gimmick, you know, doing the whole urban legends thing. I think that is something which a little bit of a nice spin on it. And I agree with you. There's some fun with the casting, like Brad Dourif, Robert Englund. So they're quite clever with that. I think, as I said, a decent gimmick. The problem is they don't really do anything with it. Like, they sort of waste the gimmick. Like, in the end, it just peters out into like another predictable like Scream type movie where you can sort of run through the characters and it's like, okay, this is Sydney or this is Stu, this is Billy, because I mean with the Leto character they're definitely going for Billy type vibes, and so you can sort of run through it like that. And the other thing is just to answer one of your questions. I have seen Alicia Witt in quite a few things,
Okay.
and I'll say I had a bit of a crush on her. So I think for a while I gave her some slack for this, and I think in other things she has been better. So
Okay.
she's better than you see in this movie. But
Mm.
yeah, rewatching this, I think the character's really boring,
Yeah.
and she isn't great in it. But I like to think that's more of a factor than her herself. Characters in this are so boring.
Mm.
They are so paper thin, and they're just really boring to watch, where they don't really have any personality. Like, they're just going through the motions of being like, this is like a rehash of the characters we saw in Scream, but
Mm.
not as good. And although the cast are pretty good, they're also like not on the same standard overall as like the cast from Scream.
Mm.
Like, in general, obviously there's actors where we've seen them be great in other movies, so we
Yeah.
know they can be great. I disagree a bit on the Danielle Harris death. I thought that was a bit cliched. We've seen that gag lots of time before, where they think the roommates are having sex where she's really being killed. That seems like, I mean, maybe it's just because I've seen it so many times since, so maybe I'm being a bit unfair to the movie. I don't know, but it just seems like a really lazy gag to me.
Okay, I don't know that I've seen it elsewhere, so I find that scene, because I don't know, there is something in that scene that I find like just really horrifying, that she is literally being killed like 2 meters away from this chick, and she just has no idea. Something about that just, yeah, it's just very creepy to me. And because I agree with you, I don't think the deaths in this movie are fantastic, so I think for me that is one of the creepier ones. And I mean, obviously the whole "aren't you glad you didn't turn on the light" thing, I've seen that done elsewhere. Supernatural has a great episode where they do that gag. But yeah, I don't know, I kind of like it, and I like that they set it up quite well, I think, that death as well, because we have established that this is what Tosh is like, and it's not something that's just, randomly thrown in. So for me, I thought that death worked, but I haven't really seen it not in that kind of way used elsewhere, or if I have, I can't really remember it. And this might have been one of the earlier examples. I mean, this movie was made back in '98, but yeah, Tosh herself, I feel like, could have been a better character, especially if you've got Danielle Harris playing her. It's like you've got a really good actress here, and you're giving her nothing to do. And Tosh in particular feels very much like a cliche to me. She feels like those cliched goth girls from the late end of the '90s who were always in the creepy chat rooms. Although, a fun fact, they let Danielle Harris actually smoke on set. She actually asked if she could really smoke in her scenes, but apparently she did so many takes that she actually quit smoking after the movie because she had just smoked so much doing those takes. So yeah, and look, I do agree with you as well when it comes to the majority of the characters being quite thin. They're not very well developed. They don't really establish like proper dynamics, and like, for example, like it doesn't even feel like they're proper friends either. Like, if you know what I mean, like it just feels like they just happen to be a bunch of college kids that just happen to hang around each other, as opposed to like when you watch Scream, like Tatum and Sydney, you can tell they're besties. You can tell Billy and Stu are close. You can tell that they're a close friendship circle. Even I Know What You Did Last Summer very firmly establishes like the core friendship group. But this, it really does feel like a bunch of disconnected people who just happen to hang out because they're in the same class, and it doesn't really feel like they're close friends. I will say I do enjoy both Michael Rosenbaum and Tara Reid's characters. Again, it might be because I find those two actors quite charismatic, and I actually feel like they at least give both of them a little bit more to do. Michael Rosenbaum is obviously playing up the kind of dude, frat boy, kind of asshole character, but he's obviously having fun playing it. And I think Tara Reid's character, like I said, being the kind of dirty talking radio host, she's having fun with that too. And I find them likable. Oh, and I don't mind the black security guard either, Reese. I think Reese is fun.
Yeah, she's pretty
Yeah,
pretty
I
good
especially
value.
the part where you see her and she's watching the Foxy Brown movie at the
Oh,
beginning.
that's
She's
good.
watching,
No,
yeah,
that's one
Jackie
of
Brown,
my
and
favourite
she's
things.
doing like the
Yeah.
the poses and like the quotes and stuff, and she essentially helps save the day. So I think she's fun, but I do think that they had a cast that was maybe a little bit wasted, and I'm wondering if this film was maybe rushed into production. You know, like a lot of the movies back then were, and therefore they didn't take the time to develop the script or to develop the characters, because you're right, the characters in this movie are very flat for the most part and don't have the deepest personalities. And like, you know, you're supposed to feel a bit of a romance between like Alicia Witt's character and Jared Leto's character, which I'm ill, but like that doesn't really work. And
Not really,
yeah,
no.
some of the dynamics just don't work. But I don't know, it's just really cheesy, this movie.
Yeah.
And I think because it evokes that time period so heavily, like you watch this movie and you're like, this is definitely set in the late 90s. And so because it evokes that nostalgia, I think I get a bit caught up in that when I do watch this movie, because like it really isn't good. But but I have fun when I watch it.
Similar to you for many years, where I was a bit on the side of, yeah, it's not a great film, but I do kind of enjoy it and I grew up on it. Nostalgia, but I just rewatching it this week. It was a slog to get through. That's the problem. Like for me, it wasn't entertaining enough. I said, I think Valentine is arguably an even worse film, but that at least was more fun. Like than this, that had fun deaths, and it was kind of so over the top and cheesy at times in a way that you could enjoy, whereas this wasn't really.
Fair enough.
So yeah, it was a slog. It obviously had moments. The cast aren't too bad, but the characters definitely very flat. The deaths are weak. Yeah, that's another thing. And they don't really do enough with the premise, the opening of the film, because that's actually one of my favourite scenes.
Yes, it is a good scene.
I've got a soft spot for these ridiculously over the top stormy scenes that you get in horror movies, where it's so exaggerated, the amount of rain that there is, and the whole deserted gas station, Brad DeWitt playing who you think could be the killer. That actress in the car, I know from lots of things as well.
Oh, okay.
Well, she's in the Buffy movie, and also she's in...
Oh, she is too, isn't she?
Is,
yes, she is. I've forgotten about that.
Yeah, she's one of these actresses, was in loads of films for like a 10-year period, and then seemed to... Because she's in High Fidelity in a small role. She's in Lost Highway, the David Lynch movie.
Yes, I saw. Yes, yeah.
So... yeah, she did have a good run for about 10 years and then just seems to have disappeared.
Vanished.
Yeah. But yeah, her singing the song really dramatically, Turn Around Bright Eyes was
Total
really
Eclipse
good.
of the Heart, yeah. Always a good one.
Yeah, it's so funny the way, just the ridiculousness of her keeping the song on when she's like fleeing for her life, and the way that works. So the opening scene I did enjoy. I thought that was a very entertaining scene and a good way to...
And I like that it is. And I really like the way Brad Dourif's character, they give him the stutter, so he can't... that's the excuse for why he can't spit out what's going on. And I do love that as she's driving out, he finally yells out, "There's someone in the back seat." And you're like, oh, okay. And you get that little twist of like, oh no, he's not the bad guy. He's trying to warn her about the bad guy. So yeah, I do think that is one of the strongest scenes in the movie. And it's a fun way to open the film. And yeah, that little cameo from Brad Dourif is just so good.
Over the top, some of those prank scenes are really grated on me a little bit, because it's sort of this thing of like, if you're going to do the flashy direction, do it for the actual kill scenes. I mean, you already, for what, I mean, because I remembered what was coming in that big prank in like the auditorium, and it
with
was,
the pop rocks.
Yeah, I was like, okay. Such angles in that scene was like really over. Like, this is not a big enough scene to be doing this stuff on. Question about the Joshua Jackson, assume he's dead, assume it's a prank for a long time, and I didn't really get that, because the Alicia Witt character is right there, and I mean, I know he's known for pranks, but it does seem pretty clear cut that he is dead in that scene.
Yeah.
So I don't. I just thought I
I guess
didn't
it's
really get that
because
plot.
Well, I guess it's because like because his urban legend thing is the guy hanging from the
Yeah.
tree above the car, which is the Hookman urban legend. And she sees the body, but no one else sees the body. And then when they go back to retrieve the body, it's disappeared. So I think
Mm.
that's why everyone assumes it's a prank because no one's found the body. So they're like, oh well, he was obviously just fucking with you, and no one saw the body except for her. So she can very clearly say no, it was a dead body. I think the issue was, and this comes back to what we were talking about earlier with characterization, is that they say, oh yeah, he's always playing pranks. Except we don't really see evidence of that, except for the pop rocks. I think if we'd
Go
seen, like, if the character had been better established, then we could have bought that more. But because they didn't establish this character that well, it just seems a little bit odd that everyone's like, you have to just kind of take everyone's word for it. Oh, he's always playing pranks. Oh, is he? Okay, well, I guess you're telling us that rather than showing us. And so because they didn't build the character up enough, we as an audience don't quite believe the other characters when they're all like, oh, he's just a prank. I think that's down to the lack of characterization in the film and the lack of establishing these characters very well.
Yeah,
Mm.
and I think also there's just this thing of after it, the Alicia Witt character seems to get over it pretty quick, considering
Yeah.
she's convinced that he's dead, and
Mm.
yeah, you just don't get the same level of impact that you would
No.
expect. Like, they don't really sell it in the same way as they do in the Scream movie, for
No.
example.
I feel like a big thing that is missing from this film is it doesn't really have any suspense. You know, like there's not really, like it's supposed to be a murder mystery. Murder mysteries are supposed to make you feel on edge and suspenseful and, oh, what's going to happen next? This film doesn't really have that. I mean, I have fun when I watch it because of the cheese, but I'm not feeling like, creeped out or intense or like, oh my God, what's going to happen next? And you want that in a horror film, and you especially want that in a murder mystery horror film. And they just don't have that in this film. It's not very atmospheric, this film,
Yeah.
like a lot of, you like a slasher film, you want atmosphere, you want creepy vibes. You don't really get that from this film. You mostly just get a college campus vibe, and that's it. And that's why, for me, I think Tosh's death scene works, because it's one of the only scenes where I feel a little bit of suspense. Like, is she going to turn on the light? Is she going to realize that she's dying and not having sex? That sort of thing. Whereas a lot of the other kills, like even Joshua Jackson's kill, which supposedly should be really creepy because it takes place, in a car in the woods, and it should be really creepy, but it's really not. And I think that, I don't know if it's down to the direction of the film or the script,
Yeah.
or maybe even the editing, but they definitely missing suspense in this film. And I think that brings the film down a lot. And, kind of turns it into less of a horror and more of just like a college campus film that just happens to have a few murders in it, at least that's how I feel when I do watch this film. It's definitely not anxiety inducing or anything like that.
Because another thing that I think about that whole Joshua Jackson character thing is it feels like they just go down that direction just as an excuse to maybe plant a little bit of doubt in the audience mind, because like, just to create this small chance that he could be the killer, Jared Leto character, because I found it so over the top that he was having such a big, like, emotional breakdown over losing this job as like a, and I understand it can look good on your CV and it can help with your career, but like, he was treating it as the end of the world. I
Yeah, it
mean,
really was.
it's
Wasn't
clearly
it?
not the final nail in your potential like journalism career. So yeah,
Yeah, his
that whole
whole
stuff.
character was he was, again, it's Jared Leto, so it's not exactly easy to watch him on screen, 20 years later, but it's also just his character, again, so flat, just nothing there, no personality. I mean, Rebecca Gayhart's character apparently had a big crush on him, but all I could think was, why? You know, like
Yeah.
there's that scene where she comes across him kissing Alicia Witt and she's all upset. And I'm like, honey, don't be upset. All you did was lose dating Jared Leto. I don't think that's a big loss. Like it just didn't work. And no, I agree with you. Like his reaction, he seemed like a lot of the other characters and a lot of the other actors seemed to realize that they were in a bad movie. You know, like like Rebecca Gayheart, Michael Rosenbaum, Tara Reid, they're all just hamming it up. Whereas I feel like Jared Leto felt like it's almost like he thought he was in a different movie and he was playing it as if he was in like a serious drama, but he's not. So it just really came across as very grating and just not at all endearing, at least not for me.
Alicia Witt's character, then, you know, they just went for two pretty faces. And yeah, and like as I said, it's the passage of time, but the casting looks worse now. His casting in American Psycho, that's pretty spot on.
Yeah, that was fun.
Or his casting in like, well, you haven't seen it yet, but My So-Called Life, that's kind of perfect casting as well.
Okay.
Not buying this guy as a good, you know, solid everyday sort of guy. And
no, definitely not.
Just a bit of a bland character, and unfortunately she's bland, and I wasn't really interested in the love triangle. The security guard might be my favourite character.
Absolutely. Reese is awesome. Yeah, she is giving it her all. She comes back in the sequels, or at least one of the sequels she's in. Yes, so that's fun. But yeah, no, Reese was fun, and I've seen that actress in other things. She's in Supernatural. I think she's in Friends. You know, she's one of those bit actresses that she pops up a lot. But no, she was really fun. And I think, you know, her running around. And I liked that she was one of the only characters that was like saying something is going on. Like the Dean is all like, everything's fine, nothing's happening. But like she actually is clued in. Kind of reminded me a little bit of like LL Cool J's character from Halloween H2O.
That's what I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah, that kind of character. So that was fun. But maybe we should get into spoilers because we want to talk about Rebecca Gayheart's character a bit, because I feel like, so obviously, you know, the whole movie, everyone's dying from urban legend, so we need to figure out who it is. So big spoilers, it does turn out to be Brenda, who is Rebecca Gayheart's character. Now, I find, and it'll be interesting to see how you find this, I find that the reveal of her as the villain both elevates and ruins the film. I feel like it elevates the film because I think that Rebecca Gayheart, once she's revealed to be the villain, just lets loose, and she's having so much fun, and you can tell that she's having so much fun. But I think it diminishes the movie because once you find out her motivation, it ends up being like, okay, that's actually really dumb, and you've actually ended up killing everyone except the person that you were after. And and I don't think that the climax of the movie is really that great. I think that the final girl pretty much, I mean, she does almost nothing to save herself. She ends up having to be saved by Jared Leto, which is just so embarrassing. And it's like, you know, what have you done to earn still living at the end of the movie? And for me, that didn't work. But what about you? How did you go with the reveal and the motivation and everything? Do you think it works?
That's pretty much how I feel, where I enjoy the scene quite a lot because of her acting, because like she really goes for it, really hams it up, and is having a fun time, and she suddenly like becomes more interesting to watch than she has been throughout the movie. But I agree with you. I think the motivation is really lame. He does fall a bit flat. Like there's some holes you can poke in it as well, because you can question, like, she's been moving these bodies about this campus. I mean, would she really have the strength for that? And like, obviously it doesn't matter too much because it's not the most serious of movies, but that's obviously a hole you can pick. But I do agree, the motivation is pretty lame. And I don't know, have you seen the Addams Family Values? Because,
yeah, but not for a very long time. But yes,
no, but I was getting vibes of that because of like the nanny in that, like the evil nanny, and that's a much better version of what this is, and that works better because that's a comedy anyway. But this just felt like
I think the issue with so the big reveal is that you find out that Rebecca Gayheart, well, you find out that Alicia Witt's character and the chick from the opening scene a few years ago, they decided to play into an urban legend, which is that if someone flashes their headlights at you, you turn around and you pursue the person and you scare them. So they did this to a young man who was eventually run off the road and died. Apparently, they didn't get any jail time or any kind of sentence, maybe because they were young, but they kind of hand waved that. But it turns out the young guy was Rebecca Gayheart's fiance, so she wants to kill these two girls. Okay, fair enough. So she kills the first girl in the opening scene. Why does she then go on a rampage and kill all of these people not even connected to this incident before she kills the main girl? And I mean, she does try to kind of hand wave it by being like, oh, well, I killed all your friends. But like I pointed out earlier, these guys don't really feel like friends. Like, this isn't like Sydney discovering Tatum in the garage door or Julie discovering Helen, and I know what she did last summer. Like, this Alicia Witt's character, she doesn't really have any strong connections to these other characters. So we basically have a movie where all of these innocent people die for no reason, you know, like at least in like, for example, like Scream, for example. I'll use as an example. Yes, other people die other than Sydney and her father, but we know that Billy and Stu are trying to create like a whole movie. So they need extra bodies, you know, in order to frame, to make their movie work out, to make their plan work out. Plus they have personal connections, you know. Casey was an ex-girlfriend of Stu, stuff like that. So we can understand why these other killings happened. Whereas in this movie, it's like, why would you kill Tara Reid? Why would you kill Michael Rosenbaum? Why would you kill Joshua Jackson? This doesn't make any sense because they're not your ultimate targets. And she's also not played as like a psychopath who just enjoys killing. Like they very much make it obvious that this is a revenge thing. So it's like, why? So at the end of the day, everyone dies except for the girl who was supposed to die. So it ends up being kind of not very satisfying. And so that for me is why it drags the film down, because it's like you have this really fun premise and then that's what you choose to do with it, just a straight up revenge plot that doesn't, you could have done that with anything. Why choose urban legends to attach it to? So yeah, I found that reveal, it every time I watch the film, I'm like I said, it both elevates it because you get Rebecca Gayheart just with the crazy eyes, just having so much fun, but it definitely diminishes it because it's kind of a stupid reason and doesn't really make a lot of sense for the movie.
Stu and Billy in Scream, it definitely feels like it's part of their MO, and it definitely feels like they are more unhinged, where they will just kill other people regardless of if it's part of the plan. But it's also, it does work into their theme as killers, and in other movies like in Halloween, it's well established that Michael Myers is a bit of a killing machine, where if you get in his way he probably will kill you type thing. But in this, because they make it a particular motivation and this is why she's doing it, it just feels random that she would kill these other people, because if it's quite calculated like this, you're actually risking getting caught more the more people you kill. So it just feels like just go for the targets. I enjoy that scene because of her, but the motivation and the way the film ends is a little bit lame. Another nitpick I had going back to like a scene before that is, but it's sort of funny as well. But you know, I thought it was pretty lame, the whole like radio scene where like the Tara Reid character is like being attacked and like Rosenbaum's character is killed, I think, in the same scene, and they do that whole thing of, well, that's how they can like hear that something's happening, but it just made me laugh that she keeps that headset on the whole time.
I know.
Even when she dives over a balcony, where you would have thought it would have come off or been damaged.
That's so true,
like,
isn't
what the
it?
hell? Jared Leto character. And again, this just comes back to it feeling like a rehash, because what they do with his character is similar to what they do with Freddie Prinze Jr. in I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Yeah.
And I think that came before this, didn't it? So again, it's a little bit of a rehash where, like, for that movie, they did like make out than he could have
He
been.
was dodgy, yeah.
And again, that's a knockoff from Scream as well, because they did that with Billy anyway. So
Yeah,
yeah, it seems
definitely.
like these movies were like doing a lot of that, where it was repeating the same sort.
Definitely. Yeah. I will say, though, I do like the scene of this movie. I think the end scene is fun and kind of plays into like the way that urban legends do develop. You know, obviously we see a new college and we see a new bunch of kids and they're telling the urban legend of what happened in the movie, and then
Mm-hmm.
and then you hear a voice saying no, that's not what happened, and then we pan over and we see that Rebecca Gayhart's character has survived and that she's sitting there and is enjoying the fact that she's now become an urban legend. I thought that was a fun little ending, but unfortunately, like I said,
Yeah,
it
I
comes at
do
the
like
end
that.
of a climax that was quite lackluster. So I think it brings that back up again a little bit, and we at least get to end on a strong note. But yeah, the climax of the movie and the actual motivation behind the killings definitely drags the movie down. And if I remember correctly, I actually think the sequels, or at least the very least the second one, actually plays better into the urban legend angle than this one does, because it actually makes
Right.
its central character work, yeah, within that frame a little bit better than this one. So we'll see how we go when we get to that. But I mean,
Well,
overall, this movie is pretty dumb, but it's dumb
mhm.
fun, so I can forgive it.
Well, with the ending, I agree. It's not a bad ending, but it did cross my mind that they were trying to make you think that the whole movie didn't happen for a minute
Oh, okay. See, I
because
didn't
of
think about
the
that. That's
nah.
interesting.
Because I just wondered naturally, well, what's she doing here if it's all because she's dead, right? But I guess,
Well, we
like
don't
you
actually see her
said,
die. We just see her fall out the window. So, you
true.
know, it could just be that she survived and escaped. And
Is it the?
yeah.
Does she go flying out the car window? Or
Yeah, something like that. Or she falls out the bell
okay,
tower
yeah.
window or something. I'm pretty sure at the end of the movie, yeah, she gets
Might be
pushed out a
Bell
window,
Tower.
but we
Okay,
don't see the body because, you know, and
okay.
then we get that final scene.
Fun one to talk about,
It is.
probably a bit more fun than it is to watch.
Yeah.
But yeah, Rebecca Gayheart is quite good value
Yeah.
actually when she's the villain.
At the rating portion, I'll let you go first because you are not as keen on this movie as I am. What would you give Urban Legend?
Well, I think if it wasn't for rewatching it this week, I think my score would be a little bit higher because, like I said, I did have that sort of nostalgia, like you, that elevated it a little bit, but it's just a very dull movie and very dumb. And the kills let it down, the characters let it down. Bar the odd one, I think the characters are pretty bad. So I'll go 4.5. It's not the worst thing in the
Nice.
world, but it's pretty bad. And again, it might be a hot take, but I think I prefer Valentine, which arguably is a worse movie, but I think it's a more fun movie as well. So yeah,
Fair
that's
enough.
what
Look,
I go.
I can't argue with that. This movie is not good, and I will fully admit that. But I'm going to rate it a bit higher just because for me, the nostalgia, the era that it's made in, and the fact that I do like some of the actors elevates it for me. So I'm going to go 6 out of 10. And look, if I was being perfectly, like, completely honest, I'd probably
Mm.
give it a 5. But I'm going to give it a 6 just because I do have a soft spot for this movie. I love Michael Rosenbaum. I like Tara Reid in this. I like the horror cameos that we get. Like we've talked about, the plot is not great. The gimmick is fun, but they don't do enough with it. But Rebecca
Yeah.
Gayheart is a really fun antagonist. And because it is from that nostalgic era from me, I think I'll always have a bit of a soft spot for this movie and I'll always have fun rewatching it no matter how bad it is. So I'm going to go with 6 out of 10. But I fully understand you rating it as low as you did because it's really not a good film. But it is fun. So that's me, 6 out of 10.
Yeah, so that's our thoughts on Urban Legend. Let us know your thoughts if you've seen it in the comments below. We will do the 2 sequels at some point, like we said. So like and subscribe as always. Share us out on social media. You can support the channel at patreon.com/boardnow. Just $1 a month, and there will be some perks during October for that. I will do some special horror themed commentaries this month, so you can get exclusive access to those if you unlock that for just $1, like I said. Also, we will be covering lots of movies, but also some TV this month because we will be doing the new Mike Flanagan show, Fall of the House of Usher. So that's something we'll be doing this month. Look out for our reviews of that. Just something else to plug, something I've started recently on the channel, and that is a new monthly recap of what me and some guests have been watching for the month in both film and TV. And so it's a different guest each time. The October episode, it should be me and Lady Sasha from What Did I Just Watch channel. She's a big horror buff and does mostly horror movies, so she's really into her horror stuff. So she will be the guest for the October episode. So you can look out for that later in October on the channel. And that's a whole new thing, which is quite exciting and fun. But Rachel, promote your channel before we go.
Guys, you can follow me, Rachel McDonald, video essays on movies and TV shows. I do have quite a few horror movies, and I should have some Halloween special movies out this month. My Tumblr and Twitter are also linked through my YouTube, and Keith usually puts the link in the description, so come and follow me everywhere.
Thanks, guys. Keep watching horror movies, and we'll see you again soon. Goodbye.